Imagine standing at the edge of a huge wilderness, the sun setting behind tall cliffs. Suddenly, the weather shifts and the rain starts to pour. But then, the calm sound of flowing water immediately turns into a loud roar. A flash flood is roaring towards you. You have only moments to decide: run for safety or face the wild head-on. What would you do? This is Fatal Tragedies, with the story of how 2024 became the Grand Canyon's deadliest year ever. Picture the Grand Canyon without people, just the psychedelic-colored canyon walls, the wind, and the river silent at the bottom of the gorge. This is likely how natives experienced it 12,000 years ago, and how Spanish explorers first glimpsed its awe-inspiring depths in the 1500s. Today, however, the canyon sees over 6 million visitors each year, flocking to its visitor centers, riding mules along the trails, boarding scenic trains, and soaring in helicopters above the vast landscape. With so many attractions, escaping the crowds may feel impossible, but there are still some lesser-known spots that offer a taste of this timeless solitude. These spots attract a large number of people to hike in the Grand Canyon. But this same beauty has also taken the lives of many who are not aware that the wilderness can be a cruel teacher. The causes of death range from boating accidents to drowning after flash floods. But before we dive even deeper, let's first understand what the Grand Canyon looks like. The Grand Canyon is a vast natural marvel in Arizona and the United States of America, and is celebrated as one of the world's most famous landmarks and draws millions of visitors each year. Visiting the canyon offers the chance to explore Earth's ancient geological story, connect with the outdoors, and experience the sheer grandeur of this iconic natural wonder. Recognized as a national park in 1919, the Grand Canyon was set aside to protect its unique formations and scenic views. At its heart, the Colorado River flows, carving the canyon's deep pathways over millions of years. Hiking trails offer adventurous ways to dive into the canyon's depths, and from the north and south rims, breathtaking panoramic views await, leaving visitors awestruck. Standing at the rim, you realize this place is a true masterpiece, shaped by nature over countless millennia. The canyon's layered rock walls hold Earth's history, revealing a story far older than humankind. Here, light and shadow play upon the cliffs, reminding us of nature's unmatched artistry. For those who hike trails, the journey brings together physical challenges, stunning scenery, and a sense of personal achievement. In the embraces of the canyon, you can find a space for reflection and wonder, where each step humbles you, merging the journey's challenge and triumphs with the vastness of the world around you. But all of this comes at a cost that you must endure. Speaking of, 2024 has been a tough year at the Grand Canyon for casualties. Rising temperatures have made hiking at the Grand Canyon riskier, especially for those unprepared. With summer temperatures typically hitting triple digits, heat-related incidents and fatalities are common. Add to this the rainy season from June to September, and the risk intensifies as sudden flash floods create extremely hazardous conditions. Over the past 17 years, no park has seen more casualties than the Grand Canyon, though considering the vast number of visitors, it doesn't really rank among the top 10 most dangerous parks by casualty rate. This high count of fatalities, however, has sparked concerns. Accidents are frequent, with several incidents each year reminding visitors of the canyon's dangers when precautions are overlooked. While the number of reported deaths may seem alarming, it remains within the average range of 10 to 15 fatalities annually. In 2023, there were 11 deaths reported, but with 6 fatalities in August alone, 2024 is on track to be one of the deadliest years on record for the Grand Canyon, potentially reaching the higher end of the historical range. Speaking of fatalities in August, one of the victims was a 71-year-old man from Morrison, Colorado, who was found dead after going missing during a private trip on the Colorado River. The man was last seen at Lower Nankoweap Camp around the River Mile 53, and his personal belongings were discovered floating in an eddy near the riverbank, leading his group to report him missing. Although it's unclear how he ended up in the water, officials noticed that he was not wearing a life jacket. On September 3rd, park rangers located his body at River Mile 63. This tragedy came just days after a 59-year-old man from Salida, Colorado, also died during a private river trip. Patrick Horton was found unresponsive by his group after spending the night on his raft near Poncho's Kitchen, around River Mile 137. Park officials have reported that no health conditions are currently suspected in Horton's death. Both bodies have been transported to the Coconino Medical Examiner's office, and investigations are underway to determine the cause of these two separate incidents. Just 1 month earlier, on August 25th, an 80-year-old man lost his life on a commercial river trip through the Grand Canyon when his boat overturned at Fossil Rapid. According to Grand Canyon National Park officials, the Grand Canyon Regional Communications Center received a report around 3:40 p.m. that CPR was being administered to the man after he was thrown from the boat. Despite all resuscitation efforts, the man was pronounced dead at the scene. The individual's name has not been disclosed, and the incident is currently under investigation by the National Park Service alongside the Coconino County Medical Examiner's office. And if you thought that was the end of the list, Grand Canyon National Park Rangers recently recovered the parachute of a Missouri man who attempted a fatal base jump from the South Rim. On the morning of August 1st, 43-year-old Justin Guthrie leaped from Yavapai Point, a popular overlook, while he was trying to deploy his parachute. Later on, search and rescue teams found his body about 500 feet below. Base jumping, which is illegal in the Grand Canyon, is usually done in more remote sections of the park where jumpers can avoid attention. Park spokesperson Joel Baird explains that the eastern areas of the canyon, which border Navajo Nation land, are particularly attractive to jumpers because of the shorter descent to the canyon floor and complex law enforcement boundaries. Here, jumpers often launch on Navajo land and drift into park territory as they descend. Reports of illegal jumps do occasionally reach park rangers, though spotting the jumpers is rare. They usually jump at dawn or dusk and rely on a support team to evade detection. The park has recorded similar incidents, with the last base jumping fatality occurring in 2014 when a Canadian jumper lost his life near the Little Colorado River. While the park lacks reliable data on how frequent these jumps happen, illegal base jumping remains a known yet difficult to detect risk at the canyon, with most visitors catching only brief glimpses of parachutes before they vanish into the landscape. Speaking of vanishing, on August 6th, the national park officials recently recovered the body of 20-year-old Leticia A. Castillo from Albuquerque, New Mexico, below the South Rim. Her body was found approximately 150 feet below the rim near two overlooks, north of Desert View Drive. After several days of searching, park rangers located her body based on a tip from somebody who had given her a ride and suggested that she might be near the Twin Overlooks area. Search and rescue recovered her body, and it was then transported to the Coconino County Medical Examiner. Under similar circumstances, a 69-year-old hiker from Austin, Texas, tragically passed away on the 29th of June while attempting a hike along the river trail near Phantom Ranch in the Grand Canyon. Scott Sims was on his way to Phantom Ranch for an overnight stay via the South Kaibab Trail when he became unresponsive. Bystanders immediately began CPR, and 3 park paramedics took over upon arrival, but Sims could not be revived. In light of this tragedy, park rangers warned visitors to avoid hiking in the inner canyon between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m., as temperatures can reach dangerously high levels during these hours. Well, that's just a glimpse of how 2024 has been so far for the Grand Canyon, in case you'd like to visit the park. But before you go, here are a few stories of some of the worst deaths that have ever happened at the Grand Canyon. George Mancuso was a straightforward man with a thirst for adventure and a deep love for photography. Though he was born and raised in the bustling streets of New York City, his heart belonged to the wilds of the Grand Canyon. From a young age, he dreamed of exploring its endless landscapes, hoping one day to capture the canyon's breathtaking beauty through his camera lens. He would spend hours studying photographs of the Grand Canyon, picturing himself amidst its towering cliffs and winding rivers. As he grew older, George's childhood dream became a reality. He embarked on countless expeditions into the canyon, each one more exhilarating than the last. He hiked its rugged trails, rafted along its powerful rivers, and camped under the starlit sky, feeling a deeper connection to the canyon with every adventure. But George's passion came with its own risks. In 1999, he suffered a serious knee injury while trekking deep within the canyon, leaving him bedridden for months. The setback only fueled his resolve. Despite the pain, George was determined to return, driven by the unwavering desire to capture the canyon's essence through his photography. His love for the canyon was unstoppable, and with every photo, he sought to share the beauty he found in its wild and endless depths. In August of 2001, George Mancuso embarked on what would be his final journey into the Grand Canyon. This time, he was joined by his friend, Linda Bramer, an avid adventurer and lover of the outdoors. Together, they planned a challenging trek to the confluence of the Little Colorado River Gorge and Salt Trail Canyon, a rarely visited isolated area within the canyon. They began the hike like any other, easily navigating the winding trails and sheer cliffs, sharing laughter as they descended deeper into the canyon's vast wilderness, unaware of the looming danger. As they neared their destination, dark clouds began gathering overhead. Although they knew it was monsoon season, George and Linda believed that they could outpace any storms that crossed their path. But nature had other plans. Suddenly, without warning, the skies opened, unleashing a heavy downpour that turned the arid landscape into a slick, perilous region. They realized that they needed to find shelter fast, but the canyon offered nowhere to hide. In the distance, they heard a growing roar, a flash flood tearing through the narrow gorge with relentless power. As the floodwaters surged closer, panic set in. Trapped with no safe ground, they had no choice but to brace for impact. The flood arrived with a thunderous crash, sweeping George and Linda off their feet and into the raging current. They clung to each other, battling the fierce waters that dragged them downstream. Rocks and uprooted trees tore through the flood's path, transforming the once tranquil canyon into a violent torrent of chaos and destruction. Hours passed as they fought the current, their strength fading with every minute, until they could no longer hang on. When the flood finally subsided, George and Linda had vanished without a trace. Rescue teams combed the canyon for days, scouring its depths and cliffs for any sign of them. Helicopters hovered above, their searchlights piercing the canyon's shadows. But despite exhaustive efforts, the search revealed nothing. George and Linda's loved ones were left with the unbearable uncertainty of their fate, holding on to hope as days turned into weeks and then months and finally into years. At time, theories emerged. Some believed the flood had swept them away for good, their bodies lost to the canyon's depths. Others hoped that they might have found shelter somewhere in the wilderness waiting to be found. And yet, as the weeks passed with no sign of them, the truth grew painfully clear. The Grand Canyon, an unforgiving and indifferent force, had claimed them as it had many before. Though their bodies were never recovered, George and Linda's spirits would forever remain part of the canyon. Their memory lives on, wandering among the cliffs and riverbeds lost to the canyon, but never forgotten. In the scorching heat of June 2004, the Grand Canyon National Park buzzed with excitement as tourists flocked to witness its stunning landscapes. Among them was a 25-year-old Timothy Clam from Illinois. His journey began simply enough. He was eager to experience a helicopter tour of the canyon. Determined to secure the best view, Timothy repeatedly tried to book the coveted front seat on a helicopter tour. Unfortunately, during the peak tourist season, the flights were fully booked, leaving him with no choice but to wait for a chance. His persistence finally paid off the following day when he managed to snag the desired seat that he'd been aiming for. As he settled into the helicopter alongside his fellow passengers, Timothy felt a mix of excitement and an unsettling premonition. The safety video played, detailing the necessary precautions for the ride, but for Timothy, it took on a more ominous tone. He watched the screen intently, absorbing every detail with a focused intensity, as if he was bracing himself for an inevitable confrontation with fate. With the pre-flight routine completed, the helicopter lifted off from the pad, its rotors slicing through the air as the breathtaking landscape below transformed into a patchwork of earth and sky. Timothy's gaze drifted inward, a storm brewing beneath his calm exterior. Approximately 38 minutes into the tour, Timothy's internal resolve solidified into action. As the helicopter traced the rim of the canyon, he suddenly unbuckled his seatbelt and reached for the door, his movements deliberate and unhurried. For a fleeting moment, time seemed to freeze as he stood at the open door, eyes locked on the vast expanse below. Maria Langer, the pilot responsible for the safety of the passengers, watched in horror as Timothy's intentions became alarmingly clear. With a swift motion, she lunged forward, hands outstretched in a desperate attempt to stop the unimaginable. But Timothy, lost in his thoughts, was beyond her reach. And that heartbeat, he let go, plunging 4,000 feet to his death. The shock of his actions rippled through the cabin like a thunderclap, leaving the other passengers speechless as they processed the sudden turn of events. The helicopter, now unbalanced from Timothy's abrupt departure, teetered on the brink of chaos. Passengers, gripped by terror, clung to one another as Maria fought to regain control of the aircraft, her hands steady even as turmoil raged within her. As the helicopter touched down near White's, its occupants emerged shaken but unharmed, their minds reeling from the events that had just unfolded in the skies above. In the days that followed, authorities scoured the canyon, searching for any traces of Timothy's passing. Their efforts were hampered by the challenging terrain and the vastness of the landscape. Despite their best attempts, no sign of him emerged, leaving behind a trail of unanswered questions. What if, in those moments, Timothy had chosen to embrace the beauty of the world around him instead of seeking an escape? As people gathered to discuss his passing, they found themselves grappling with more questions than answers. Yet one truth remained clear: Timothy had found peace from the struggle he'd been battling. No matter where he was, he'd escaped the misery that once weighed him down. Well, what would you do if you found yourself facing the unknown in the great outdoors? Let us know in the comments below, and if you enjoyed exploring these captivating stories of adventure and mystery in the Grand Canyon, don't forget to like and subscribe for more thrilling tales. We'll see you in the next video.